The hero did not know who had invented this system of a sage dragging out his existence, but he had become its hostage, and being great, he had to hide in the shadows. Over 6 years he reached the 4th level, which is the pace of a very ordinary student. But for him, stability was the most important thing. After countless years, he was bound to reach the peak. And perhaps then the hero could return home. If that's the case, no matter how long the wait might be, it would be worth it. The hero understood that so far there was no benefit from these dreams. It's good that he had an older brother, as now there was someone to take care of his parents. This was Flora's world. Faust Stoneham lived in his own little house with a yard. At this moment, he decided that it was time for him to sign up for some classes. Feist studied a little bit of everything to stretch out his progress, otherwise he could make a premature breakthrough. At this time, Eustace Verdon called to Faust from below and urged him to stop showing off his intermediate-level body lightning technique. The hero descended to his comrade, and the latter, with hope in his eyes, asked when he would be able to teach him the same technique. The hero suggested that he develop attacking techniques less. But in that case, Eustace didn't understand what he should do if he encountered a dangerous beast. The hero didn't understand why such a talented student always advocated for the path of cowardice. Once untamed animals escaped from the animal management and moved toward the village, Eustace received serious injuries from their claws. He could no longer fight. As soon as the beasts were ready to pounce on the poor guy and tear him apart, someone pierced them with a sword with incredible strength. It turned out to be Faust. He asked Eustace if he could stand up on his own. Magic attack spells are very difficult to fully master, but Eustace easily combined 3 spells and released them with a single wave of his hand. The guys standing nearby were talking about Master Zwilling from the combat division giving lectures in the training hall. The hero didn't understand why study attacking techniques when one could study defensive ones, since in his opinion, to survive meant to win. Sometime later, Feist was already standing by the signs with the study of various techniques and methods, thinking about which course he should enroll in. The hero pondered. One of the plaques described the use of medicinal plants in alchemy, and this interested him greatly. He hurried to the girl sitting at the table to sign up for her course. She explained to the hero that the course lasts 3 days and only 3 places remain, while its cost was 50 spirit stones. Faust frowned. In a year of completing the sect's tasks, he hadn't earned even 100 stones, and now he would have to part with most of his annual income. The girl explained that if he was going to study alchemy, then their course was essential as it covered the fundamentals. In the end, the hero paid 50 spiritual stones and walked away upset. As soon as the guy left, the saleswoman thought that this is just another guy dreaming in vain of achieving something. At the evening market, Faust was walking and stretching tiredly, still hoping that his investments would pay off. Suddenly a familiar voice called out to him. It was Uncle Channing, who asked if Faust had come to visit his daughter. He was curious about when the guy would pay the ransom for her and get married, while the protagonist embarrassedly rubbed his head and tried to laugh it off. Once Channing's daughter wanted to become his wife, and he joked that as soon as he collected the dowry, he would marry her right away. He didn't understand why they were all acting now as if this was serious. The guy explained to Channing that it was time for him to go home and asked him not to tell the little girl that he had been here. But Uncle laughed and said that she already knows everything. At that moment, a short girl pounced on the hero from behind and hugged him. The hero turned to little Juliana and was about to say that he was joking then, but the uncle put his hand on his shoulder and said that a real man doesn't go back on his word. The girl looked at him with big eyes and told him that according to the traditions of their village, if a girl and a boy exchange gifts, they are obligated to get married afterward. Faust tried to deny it, calling the gift just a toy, but the girl wouldn't leave him alone. The hero thought that he was already stuck due to a malfunctioning system, and rural traditions were the last thing he needed. When the guy was already returning home and was flying quite close by, Eustace called out to him, who had brought him a frightened animal. It turned out to be a spiritual sheep, specially raised by the sect. The hero asked the guy if law enforcement officers would follow. He asked him to come in and, just in case, activated a huge protective dome over his house and garden. Eustace was impressed. He admitted that at each of their meetings, the hero made him feel worthless with his mastery. He admitted that his mastery of offensive and defensive techniques does not match his position in society at all. The hero covered his mouth with his palm and explained that he was trying to keep a low profile. He ordered to bring the sheep to the yard and waved his hand to indicate exactly where to bring it. Sometime later, when Faust finished cooking, He opened the lid and a wonderful aroma reached the guys along with the beauty of the roasted lamb. Drooling Eustace rummaged in his bag and took out some wine. The guy poured wine into the cups and admitted that it cost much more than a sheep. Faust crossed his arms on his chest and looked seriously at the guy. He told him to confess what was going on, since on a normal evening Eustace wouldn't spend such amounts. The guy laughed and admitted that nothing could be hidden from him. He said that he decided to join the combat unit because his mentor was from there. Eustace said that he would never forget how the hero saved his life, and sadly noted that he might never return here again, as the missions are dangerous. The hero thought that the guy was very cunning and wasn't pretending to be poor in front of him for nothing. When the whole lamb was eaten, Eustace remarked that one who had eaten Faust's food had not lived in vain. He ran towards the exit, and Faust threw him protective boards, which he caught. The hero knew that he had almost no friends here, and he hoped that he would not lose this guy. With Eustace's departure, he could continue his reclusive life. Now he was lying on a lounge chair and using the spiritual rain technique for watering. Without getting up at night, he could apply the light concentration technique and thought that after mastering alchemy, he would sell pills and save money for blacksmithing training. He could also use the spring wind technique and was glad that alchemy and forging skills would allow him to live comfortably. The universe in which the hero found himself was enormous. There existed at least several kingdoms of celestial beings. The world in which he found himself belonged to the middle Heliocosm, where ordinary people coexisted with those who strive to enter the realm of celestial beings. In the history of the Heavenly Throne sect, there have already been mentors who entered the realm of celestial beings, but the hero wasn't going to experience that anytime soon. In case of death before the upper limit day, he would not face rebirth, so he had to live like a mouse. Faust understood that what was the use of all his talents if he were to be exposed? Then someone would certainly kill him out of envy. And if he crosses someone's path at the foundation-laying stage, not to mention higher stages, he won't even be able to protect himself. Suddenly the hero had an insight and even cried out. He realized that he could take on disciples, and since he couldn't develop himself, he would develop others. Defending one's teacher is a sacred duty of every student. Having strong students, he will be able to stop worrying about his safety. The hero decided that as soon as he reaches the 12th level of energy tempering, he would immediately take on a disciple. At this moment, an attempt was made to scan the host, and the attempt was successfully blocked. Someone was trying to get to the hero again. The hero wondered if the Heavenly Throne sect really had so many enemies. Why it was necessary to scan the entire territory of the sect once every few days. Faust thought that the direction of the animal soul was very interesting. If 3 spells were combined, it would be possible to synthesize the summoning of a beast. The hero caught a sparrow and decided that he would be the one to make a contribution to science. He applied his charms on the sparrow and waited to see what might come of it. A ceramic sparrow was created. The result looked good. He didn't know if such a trick would work with the werewolf. But the joy didn't last long, as the sparrow couldn't fly and fell on Faust's head, injuring him. The guy decided that as soon as alchemy started bringing in money, he would try to buy a normal vessel. At the same time, in the forest beyond the territory of the sect, Eustace was happy that he only needed one technique. He was made happy by the realization that his brother Faust had once again given him a spell of incredible power. In the forest beyond the territory of the Heavenly Throne sect, the mentor hoped that no one had eaten the novice Eustace. Otherwise, all responsibility would fall on him. When he saw the guy, he was clearly surprised that he had finished off the beast with a single blow. He also thought that the combat unit had gained another A-rank fighter. The combat division categorized fighters into ranks: A, B, C, D. Rank D fighters were worthless. C were viewed as cannon fodder. B were cultivated as the main force. And the rank A fighters were the future elite. Mentors personally took care of their development. They were provided with all the best. The mentor admitted that it was surprising how he was able to deal with the beast at the 6th stage of tempering so easily. He explained that to reach rank A, one would need to prove oneself further and kill 10 beasts at the 7th tempering level. The mentor hoped that when Eustace becomes a rank A fighter, he would not forget about him, and Eustace promised that this would not happen. A little later, the guy already came to the hero, and they were sitting together by the fire where meat was being cooked. Faust did not understand what was so amazing about killing a 6th-level beast. Faust explained that he gave him the fire spike spell. Its special feature is that it slows down the heartbeat right before casting. Eustace exclaimed enthusiastically that he was simply a genius, and he suggested that he join the combat unit with him. The hero confessed that he doesn't like killing, and the risks of dying himself would increase, while the position of fighters in society is lower than that of masters of alchemy and forging. Besides, even if Faust develops to the peak of the tempering stage, he won't be able to break through to the next stage before the designated time. Estes asked if instilling terror in the hearts of those around wasn't every man's dream. He thought that his brother with his talents would now be able to ascend to the realm of celestial beings and become a revered ancestor of the heavenly throne sect. And he, like a disciple, was ready to ascend there directly with him. Faust inquired why he was striving to enter the realm of celestial beings, since life there is even worse than here. The hero said that this is a very cruel world, a real hell for cultivators. Eustace, meanwhile, did not understand what he was saying, and the hero thought that he would hardly be able to live like a lazy seal in the realm of the celestial dwellers. Suddenly, Faust concentrated energy in his index and middle fingers with a detached face. He cut the meat and advised Eustace to eat more meat. While the guy was chewing, he offered to take the hero as his apprentice. The hero didn't understand whether he was speaking seriously or not. All this seemed more like a joke. Eustace said that among his ancestors there was a warrior at the stage of spirit birth. Now his family has fallen into decline, but thanks to the travel notes left by that ancestor, the members of his family had a broad outlook. Eustace's face became serious, and he said that the realm of celestial beings was indeed a cruel place. The territory of their sect was located in one of the poorest regions of the world of Flora, and the central continent was considered the promised land for every cultivator. There are many sects with disciples at the spirit birth stage and higher. The strongest of them was the Heavenly Arrow sect. There is no one stronger than them in the world. The hero was drinking tea and watched from afar as his friend began. He definitely did not expect such knowledge about the world from him. Cultivators of the central continent have studied all techniques, and now are engaged in combining old ones and creating new techniques and spells. Eustace's ancestor personally visited the Heavenly Arrow sect. Their disciples at the tempering stage are capable of defeating beasts at the foundation-laying stage. Eustace explained that Faust has all the necessary qualities to become such a spellcaster. He fell to his knees and began to beg Eustace to take him as his apprentice. Faust looked arrogantly at Estes and said that he was already over 18, and it was too late to ask to be an apprentice. He extended his charged index and middle fingers toward the guy and admitted that the thought had already formed in his head that he lacked the talent to become a spellcaster. The poor guy thought that the hero wanted to kill him as an unnecessary witness. Faust pressed 2 fingers to the young man's flask, and he even cried from fear. The hero clarified that he does not intend to kill Eustace. He just decided to edit his memory. After some time, the hero was already sitting in his office and thinking that he needed to write down everything that Eustace had managed to tell him, because this world was much more complex. At some point, Faust wondered if he really needed all of this. The hero didn't understand what was the point of striving to get there. He decided not to train today and give himself a day off. If he had a computer with internet access here, being a sage dragging out his existence wouldn't be so dreary. He was already tired of purifying his mind and taming his desires. Suddenly, he saw a huge flying ship passing over his house and ran outside. Near the huge ship, there were several hundred sentries at the golden elixir stage. The main ship was also protected by smaller vessels, about 300 meters in size. Faust thought that, judging by the scale, this expedition was sent to search for valuable resources. At that moment, the limping Eustace was moving toward the hero, and the hero inquired what was wrong with his leg. Eustace told how he was wounded in the process of completing a mission, and he took a few days off to recover. He thought about why not spend the weekend in the company of his friend, and the hero realized that regardless of what spells he had given him, Eustace decided to go head-on. The guy said that the beast had strong protection, and it could only be penetrated with the help of Faust's spells. The hero began to lament him for deciding to go head-on. He couldn't understand how Eustace could forget defensive techniques. The comrade put his hands on Faust's shoulders and asked him to stop cursing, as he had come to him for advice. The hero thought at that time that those who are gifted grasp everything on the fly anyway. Faust enthusiastically said that for some reason his brother hides his talents from others. The hero surrendered and decided to tell his comrade how to deal with such beasts. And in exchange, Eustace was supposed to tell him about ships. After Faust showed him the technique, the young man noticed that this technique was simply superb. Faust explained that his spiritual energy would not be enough to maintain the illusion for long, so he suggested starting now. He explained that now he would meet a fast animal with good protection. It was a stone mantis of the 7th tempering level. The guy had 15 minutes to kill him, after which the hero was supposed to analyze his shortcomings. Eustace used the technique of feather lightness and fire spikes. The hero noted that the guy moves quite fast but releases spikes slowly. He said that it was kindergarten level, and Eustace was so annoyed that he didn't even notice the praying mantis sneaking up on him from behind. After the fight, Faust explained that the guy lost this match almost completely, all because of the lack of observation of the opponent. He touched his fingers to the young man's forehead and said that during the battle he needed to remember that to defeat a powerful beast, he must use a spell that seals its movements. And this could only be done if he understood where the beast would be the next moment. Eustace felt hopeless, and the hero explained that as soon as he missed, his movements became frantic, and at that moment, he lost. Eustace thought that the hero's ability to create illusions was so excellent that he still felt pain from the blows he had received. The young man exclaimed that he thinks this is not all of his shortcomings and asked the hero to voice them all. Faust smiled and explained that nothing would change if he pointed them out. He had always wanted to say this phrase. After the discussion, the hero asked Eustace to tell him everything he knew about ships. A little later, when they were already lying on the sun loungers under the sun, the guy wanted to start the story. He explained that the history of that giant ship is quite old. 500 years ago, the Supreme Mentor gathered all the property of the sect and went to the central continent to commission the construction of a ship. For this reason, Eustace's sect had not accepted new disciples for 50 years, because they could barely feed themselves. And only when the built ship arrived, the life of the sect began to return to normal. And since then, they have been considered a serious force. The hero didn't understand why they suffered so much for this ship, and Eustace explained that it was all for the resources. Half of Flora's area was covered by water, and it was believed that the amount of resources in the Great Sea was as boundless as the sea itself. Eustace explained that the Great Sea is extremely dangerous, and it cannot be explored relying only on strong warriors. From the depths of the Great Sea, terrible monsters would sometimes rise. Only with a flying ship is there a chance to fend off the attacks. They also said that on a flying ship, one could not only sail across the sea and air, but also go beyond the celestial horizon. The hero peered into the sky and couldn't understand whether Eustace was talking about space or not. The guy said that only the highest level sects are capable of this, while their people are content with traveling across the Great Sea. Faust pondered. Apparently possessing such a ship was akin to possessing nuclear weapons. It determined the position of the sect in the world. The hero asked his comrade if there was a way to get on board the ship and inspect it. Only 4 types of people were allowed on board: experts in research spells, guards from the combat division, and masters of alchemy and forging. Also, these are ship commanders at the stage of void exploration, who are well versed in spells, alchemy, and forging. Eustace said that it wouldn't be difficult for the hero to get on the ship. At first, it would be enough just to join the combat unit. Faust became sad. He imagined how much money was needed to become a master of forging or alchemy of the 3rd class and above. Eustace made puppy eyes and hopefully asked if the hero would go with him to the combat section, but he refused. The next morning, the hero approached the alchemy training halls. He already regretted not studying so diligently in his past life. The hero looked seriously into the void. He wanted his family to wait for him, and he would definitely find a way to return. Faust greeted the girl and explained that he wanted to sign up for pill-making techniques. The girl explained that it would cost 500 spirit stones and 100 merit points, and he would also be able to join the alchemy division. As soon as the hero paid, she called him to follow her. What the hero saw was impressive, and the girl thought that today he had left his village for the first time. She handed him the tablet and wished him to become a master of alchemy as soon as possible. When the hero entered the classroom, he saw that there were quite a lot of people there. A very beautiful girl approached him with a greeting and said that, as she understood, today was his first day in class. The guy couldn't take his eyes off her. He had heard legends about her before. The hero introduced himself and asked what her name was. The girl introduced herself as Yaneta Shoes. She said that when her father doesn't show up for class, she would substitute for him. Yaneta explained that other students had only managed to study some basics. Later they would be able to practice one-on-one. She explained to Faust that he should listen to her especially carefully. The hero thought about what a rapid plot development had occurred. He had seen a film that started the same way. Yaneta explained that today they would be studying methods of initial processing of spiritual plants. The guy was happily thinking that he had finally embarked on the path of studying alchemy. After a month, Faust already considered alchemy to be a complex matter. Only after a month was he ready to begin his first experiments. He used fire control technique and energy control technique on the pot. Upon lifting the lid, he saw that there were balls of different colors inside. He had barely thought that it was as easy as pie when his cauldron exploded and the hero was splattered with soot. He understood that the pot was worth a whole heap of money and asked the cauldron not to explode anymore. The first cracks had already appeared on the boiler itself, which failed to hide from the hero's eyes. He pondered about what they said that to make the first pill, you need at least 20 cauldrons. But such rules clearly did not apply to geniuses like him. Nevertheless, his boiler burned out for the third time already. But still, after just 3 explosions, the hero managed to do what he wanted. He finally understood how to work with this. If the next batch is also successful, then after deducting expenses, it will bring him 600% profit. He confidently decided that since things were already in motion, he needed to act sooner. The next day, Charlie Shows, Yaneda's father, was already teaching in the alchemy classrooms. He laughed as he saw from the students' faces that they had clearly blown up more than one cauldron before they succeeded. The hero confessed along with everyone else that he too had almost killed himself yesterday. Faust felt that the professor's gaze was directed right at him. He seemed to feel that he understood how the hero had manufactured the batch. He asked his daughter if she knew Faust well, and she replied that this student was not particularly outstanding in any way. The professor thought that as soon as he entered the room, he sensed an aura of a ready nutritional pill from the hero. He shared with his daughter that he thought the hero had great potential and was planning to take him for personal training someday. The hero was in anticipation. He hoped that his pot would withstand 6 more explosions. He needed to try not to damage it. When he went outside, he noticed that someone had moved into the neighboring mountain, but he couldn't understand why anyone would move to such a remote place. At that very moment, this someone flew out of their house and flew up to the hero, almost knocking him off his feet. It was little Juliana Voland. The hero caught her in mid-air, and she told him that she had come to visit her husband. Faust did not understand what she was doing, whether it was a demonstration of her cultivation or showing off her skirt. She was still hugging him and boasting that one mentor had said there was a great spiritual foundation in her. The girl also said that her father asked to remind that the hero should find time and bring a ransom for her. The hero smiled and explained that it was already close to noon and he would prepare something for her now. Soon the table was piled with all kinds of delicacies, and while Juliana was eating, he asked her if she understood that all this was a joke. He explained that choosing a groom is the most important decision in any girl's life. Already in the next moment, he heard the girl sobbing and saying that her husband didn't need her at all. He tried to calm her down, but couldn't find the right words to help in any way. After 3 hours, the girl was ready to flood the whole house with tears. The hero finally gave in and explained that no one was rejecting her. He banged on the table and through desperate bloody tears shouted that he would pay a ransom for her. The girl instantly calmed down, as if she hadn't been crying at all, and began to devour the food, praising it along the way. The hero realized that he had simply been led to such a decision and forced to say it. He was ready to tear his hair out. But at some point he calmed down, patted the girl on the head, and decided that for now, let everything be as it is. The next morning, Juliana was already reaching across the entire table to the hero without any embarrassment. Suddenly, there was a flapping of wings and a beautiful girl appeared on a huge bird. The hero was speechless. He decided that the system had finally decided to take pity on him and give him a gift. He greeted the beautiful lady and asked how he could be of service to her. The lady lifted the hero's bride up on a blue water lily and asked if she would like to become her ward. At this time, an elder also appeared, who asked if a woman had come here to take away his ward. He explained that although she was a bearer of the celestial spirit, she was not worth her attention. The woman looked at the man arrogantly and explained that their fates were connected and she would take it in any case. After that, she turned to the girl again and asked if she wanted to become her student. Julianne thought for a moment and turned toward the hero, asking how she should best deal with this. Faust's head at this time was preoccupied with how beautiful the lady was who had flown to him and what a terrible man. Finally, he came to his senses and told Juliana that she shouldn't pass up such an excellent opportunity. The lady at that time thought that if the bearer of the heavenly spirit chose this particular hero, then he himself must be special. Juliana replied that she would do as her husband commanded. She agreed to become the lady's student. At that moment, the hero was left alone and thought about when everyone would finally leave him in peace. He pondered about how he could improve the techniques of the 5 elements. It wasn't for nothing that he bought this book. At that moment, loud footsteps were heard and a muscular man appeared, whom Faust did not immediately recognize as Eustace. As he approached the hero, the comrade decreased in size. He explained that he had returned for a short rest due to difficult assignments. Eustace told how he was on the brink of life and death every day. After some time, on the lounge chairs, the comrade asked for advice on how to kill the remaining two beasts, from which he had survived only thanks to spells. The first one was the earthworm. It had a very unusual defense technique. As soon as it senses danger, it immediately goes underground. The second was a bloody cat. He never managed to catch its movement patterns. It inflicted fatal wounds on him. Eustace asked how Faust would have dealt with them in his place. Faust explained that he has a secret technique that allows him to kill any beast with a single blow. He said that he would now create 2 stone mantises with the qualities of the beasts you described. He was going to kill them using a secret technique. One movement of the hero's hand was enough to punch a huge hole in the mantis. Eustace fell to his knees and asked his brother to pass this technique to him. The hero jokingly explained that to master this technique, one needs to shave their head. Faust thought about how he had dug a pit and was offering his friend to jump into it. But his secret technique was worth it. Eustace burst into tears but agreed to shave his head. At that moment, Faust himself turned away and chuckled maliciously. After some time, Eustace's head was already bald, and the hero said that he had taken another step toward becoming stronger. The guy noticed something fishy and asked his brother why he was so strong but not bald. The hero decided to wriggle out of the situation and explained that he did not seek to become even stronger. He showed him out the gate and ordered him to return home and hone this technique. In fact, the hero didn't think he would fall for it so easily. It was time for him to focus on his own plans. 3 months later, somewhere in a far consecrated place where Juliana resided, the woman who took her couldn't understand how only 3 months had passed, and she already felt the urge to fly away from here. She said that she hadn't even mastered the techniques of the heavenly mandate yet, but was already planning to leave. The woman looked at those puppy eyes and remembered herself at her age. She should be satisfied with her progress. The mentor will never forget the horror of that picture. She knew that this was a warning from the celestial spirit. The woman ruffled the girl's hair and thought about how much she was asking of her, because only she could stop this catastrophe. Juliana explained that it was all very complicated, and only if she took a little walk would her strength return. The woman pondered that the heavenly spirit would not have allowed her to choose an ordinary person, to whom she now wanted to go home. She explained to the girl that she could go for a walk, but she couldn't go to her husband yet, until she had mastered the techniques of the heavenly mandate. The hero, meanwhile, came to the training halls of forging and was blinded by a sudden light. Unexpectedly for him, everyone in the class was sitting bald. The bald students were talking among themselves that Brother Eustace had told them about such a strange technique and said that it helps. He had already seen this in the alchemy halls, and now the fashion had reached the forging hall as well. After a short time, most of the students shaved their heads. This phenomenon went down in history as the bald madness. The hero, meanwhile, wearily thought that the entry threshold for blacksmithing was even higher than for alchemy. On his way, he met Famos Preston, who had heard rumors about the hero's success in alchemy. He decided to congratulate him personally and gave him one of the crystals. The hero thought that before reaching the tempering stage, they had studied together. Now he reminded him that there were very few people here whom he could call a friend. While the hero was pouring tea, his friend confessed to him that all they could do was get pennies for completing the sex tasks. He also explained that they can exchange resources and information with each other and solve complex problems together. The hero remembered that his friend comes from a wealthy merchant family, and they are cooler than any of the great warrior clans. When Faust had just moved here, he received alms from him. He saw the entourage with which Famos arrived here. He, in turn, informed that he wants to gather more than 1,000 external disciples at one stage who could help each other. Besides, among the external students there were many who would like to try themselves in alchemy, but they had no money for education. He hugged the hero and said that currently our alliance has 40 student candidates to join the combat division. Famos handed down the hero and explained that it was something like a means of communication. He also handed him the jade tablets and said goodbye. The hero had barely managed to come to his senses when he turned around and saw Yanetta. This girl was exactly the one he wanted to meet the least. He also offered her tea, and they were already sitting at the table. The girl thought that since her father had told her to pay more attention to the hero, she increasingly felt that the more she thought about him, the more he caressed her gaze. She understood that she shouldn't have been distracted and forgotten about the purpose of her visit. Yanetta leaned across the table and asked why the hero didn't want to become part of the alchemy department. She was curious why he didn't want to become her father's student. The hero hesitated. He didn't want to tell her the whole truth and admitted that he was simply a freedom-loving person. The girl was indignant. She claimed that his successes indicated that he had a special gift in alchemy. Faust thought that it seemed he would have to tell her at least part of the truth. Otherwise, he wouldn't get rid of her. He asked if the girl had ever been on the flying ship of their sect. She told about how she once traveled on board of it, and the hero said that someday he would build exactly the same one. He confessed that alchemy was just one of the stages of a grand plan, and he didn't become her father's apprentice because he didn't want to waste his time. The girl had already heard similar words from her brother before. She told Faust, "If you don't want to be an alchemist, then do everything possible to become a good blacksmith." After her departure, the young man almost burst into tears. He needed to find an occupation that would bring him joy. He entered the Kajina, and a huge screen opened up before his face. The hero wondered if the most beautiful girl in the village had started dating his Eustace. At this time, Eustace told his girlfriend that if it weren't for the hero, he wouldn't have achieved anything in this life. The girl's name was Celestia Manson, and she and Eustace came to visit the hero. In the eyes of the hero, the girl was truly beautiful, and he greeted her. He told Eustace that he was impressed by how he had managed to pick up the most beautiful girl in the sect. Such news couldn't pass him by. With the help of his energy, Eustace quickly conjured a table for them, and the hero was clearly surprised by this. The comrade confessed that recently he and his girlfriend went on a mission and they encountered a soul eater, and although they ran very fast, his girlfriend was infected by its breath. The hero couldn't believe why Eustace was running away from the soul eater, and even allowed his girlfriend to get infected. He shot an energy arrow right above the girl's aura. At that very moment, the soul eater was killed, and the hero began his meal, and Eustace did not forget to praise him for this. And again, during the lunch meal, Eustace tried to get our hero to perform some spells, even dragging his girlfriend into it. He tried to persuade the hero to go with him on the mission, and said that there they could find the legacy of the great masters. Faust pondered, and if he wanted to become an outstanding master of forging, knowing many runes was absolutely necessary for him. He decided to forge something else for himself that could increase his chances of survival on the other side of the portal. He uttered an entire introductory course in forging. Forging is the art of extracting the essence from all that exists and forming something new. At the hardening stage, the existing spiritual fire is insufficient for tempering materials. For this, it was necessary to find a place with abundant spiritual fire and, using the benefits of such a place, temper the ore. The materials had to be hardened many times. Before the forging object cools down and takes its final form, runes need to be melted into it. To create the most basic items, you need to use at least 3 runes. Next would be provided a list of the most commonly encountered types of spiritual ore and their characteristics. The hero mastered these skills. It was much more interesting than alchemy. Famous called him and was surprised that he was not only studying alchemy but now blacksmithing as well. Sometime later, the hero came to the smithy halls and said that he wanted to rent a room. Finally, Faust was ready to try himself in real forging. There were a lot of degrees, so the hero decided to put on ice protection. He first decided to try a special spell. The hero remembered what Famos had told him about simultaneously leveling up alchemy and forging skills. Apparently, a person who is equally successful in various crafts is simultaneously viewed even by the heavens as a threat. The hero was planning to first process the ore with spiritual hammers. He did not expect that this process would be so spiritually draining. He felt like he was on the home stretch. Faust decided that it was time to insert the runes and read the spells. The next moment, an explosion appeared before his face. He looked at what remained of the sword with surprise and distress, unable to believe it. At that moment, some person peeked into the room and was surprised by what was happening here. The hero recognized the manager in the man and said that until he succeeds with the forging, he won't let him go anywhere. 3 days later, Eustace was flying over the mountain on a crane with his girlfriend. They noticed our hero healing on his sword not far from them. Faust, in turn, was very tired, but he thought that the two of them were torturing the poor crane. When they landed on the ground and got off the crane, Eustace was very surprised that the hero flew on a sword that he himself had forged. Faust became proud. He said that he could already be called a master of forging. Suddenly, the man explained that the portal would open now, and after entering the portal, no one could be killed. In a month, they would be automatically ejected from there. The man was hovering in the air and said to prepare for the portal opening. Eustace asked Faust if he would go with them, but he replied that he wouldn't. Finally, the hero gave him a crystal, which in case of an emergency needed to be released into spiritual energy. Eustace didn't have time to thank him before our hero flew into the portal. After passing into another world, he realized what pure spiritual energy was there. It took his breath away. He jumped to the ground and decided that the month would fly by unnoticed. But he couldn't do without a base of operations. He was still praising his sword and didn't notice how a pack of wolves crept up on him from behind. He only had time to cast his stern gaze upon them, and that was enough for the beasts at the 4th stage of tempering to fall down and tuck their tails. He went to the forest, and since his house was almost built, it was time to look for the runes left here by the forging masters. The hero approached the lake and thought that he could find something useful in it, but suddenly a high wave rose. A young man appeared from the waves in amazing beauty, and the guy thought that he had arrived before him. It was Sam Island, possessor of a soft and relaxed voice, who greeted our hero. Faust was surprised. He thought that he resembled the main character even more than himself. He bowed and introduced his name to the young man. The hero found it unpleasant to admit, but he was even more handsome than him. The new acquaintance handed him a pearl in honor of their meeting. He was glad to meet our hero. The meaning of the gift to Faust was perfectly clear. He was supposed to take the pearl, committing to keep his mouth shut. It was extremely difficult for the hero to believe in everything that was happening. Sam smiled and asked the hero if he liked his gift. Faust decided to himself that next time he should stay as far away as possible from this character. The main character said that their paths would cross again and flew away at the speed of light. The hero pondered that usually they lose a couple of friends who are secondary characters, but he didn't need that. Night had already fallen, and the hero finally made it into his house. The main character took everything from one lake completely and even gouged out the eyes of the turtles. But he still liked it here, as there was still a lot of valuable stuff here. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, and when Faust opened it, he saw many fireflies. He thought they were ghosts. The hero only had time to cry out in fear, but these turned out to be the very wolves he had tasked with finding valuable items. He examined their bags and thought that they had done a good job. They had found a lot of valuable things. The wolves were visually trying to explain that they had found these things and taken them from the corpses. The hero had to use stealth mode to avoid being discovered in this forest for safety reasons. The next morning he was already up before the sun and now was drinking tea by the fire. Suddenly there was a noise, and the hero recognized this barely perceptible sound made during flight on a sword. It was Cheerful Sam again. Faust also thought that the main character was trying to express himself too strongly. He noticed delicious food in the pot and flew in following the smell. Our hero advised him to join and eat. Faust suggested that Sam tell him something interesting about himself that he doesn't know yet. He understood that the main character always has a mentor. How could it be without this cliché? Sam sadly explained that he had already gotten used to mockery. A few months ago, he was an inner disciple at the foundation-laying stage. Now he was trying to accumulate as much wealth as possible, so that in case he turned into an ordinary Marinin, he would at least be able to live a comfortable life. The hero tried to support him, and said that he had no doubt that he would be able to restore his cultivation and return to his rightful place. Sam joyfully squeezed the hero's hands and said that when others learned his story, they just laughed at him. He confessed that he desperately wanted to be friends with Faust. Meanwhile, the hero thought that it was he who didn't want to be friends with him, but he didn't voice his thoughts. He pondered that he wouldn't be surprised if, after dropping to the 3rd level of tempering, a wise mentor would appear from his ring. After an hour, our hero finally found the spiritual tree in the forest. He hadn't managed to do anything when a flock of birds, disturbed by something, already rose above the forest, and in the blink of an eye, a huge bear appeared over Faust. It was a monster, ready to devour everything in its path. But the hero, it seemed, was not afraid. He raised his flying sword that pierces souls. In the next moment, with a single sweep of his hand, he sliced the entire bear in half. The needles on the sword were not for embroidery. It was a set of 36 pieces. Thin for hair, almost imperceptible to the eye, they lay with a cold light. Finally, from the spiritual tree, by the next day, the hero managed to heal his own ship. Suddenly he felt some impulse. It was Eustace who was in trouble and was sending him a signal. Our hero boarded his own ship and went to his rescue at the speed of light. At this time, Eustace and his girlfriend were running away from bee-like monsters. His wife asked in passing whether Faust would really be able to save them this time. If he hadn't done that, she could have used the secret technique of igniting her own spirit and blood. Eustace sincerely hoped that this would not be necessary. He tried to run faster and dodge the bee's stingers. He swallowed the acceleration pill and now was running as fast as he could to save himself and his bride. At this moment, Faust used the eagle eye technique and observed the guys. He understood that no one in their right mind would approach the deadly tools. Eustace himself felt the spiritual energy, which meant only one thing, that his brother was approaching. There were so many bees that they rose all the way up to the ship, and Eustace apologized for dragging our hero into all this. It didn't take a minute before many bees were already flying down and falling to the ground. Faust picked up the unfortunate lovers from the ground and transferred them to his own ship. Sometime later, he was already sitting exhausted on the shore of the lake and frying chicken. He thought that while he couldn't use spells requiring spiritual energy, those that required mental powers were still accessible to him. Suddenly there was a noise and the sleeping Eustace jumped up. He thought that he was in hell or it was the underworld. He hurried to wake up the sleeping bride so that they both could thank the hero for saving them. Faust threw them a vial and told them to take the elixir, otherwise complications might arise later. Eustace, with tears in his eyes, rushed to embrace the hero for saving his life for the second time. But Faust in turn started shouting and said that Eustace would still pay for everything, and with money at that. At this time, Celestia the bride also woke up, and together they began to cry and thank Faust for saving them. The hero was already eating the meat with gusto and asked who was the first to think of attacking wild bees. Eustace admitted that their original plan was flawless, but at some point everything went wrong, and the bees discovered them. He explained that the honey of deadly bees has unique and healing properties, even extending life. And Eustace also said that this was needed for his mother-in-law, so that she would consider him a worthy husband. As soon as the comrade announced the ransom amount, the hero thought that she was practically a holy woman. He would only need about 10 years to save up this money. He remembered how in his past life they helped get a serious ransom out of him. Faust threw them a chicken leg and asked if they had managed to get that honey or not. The girl took out a vial and said that it cost 2,000 spiritual stones per liter. The hero was shocked by such a cost. He inquired about the place where these particular bees were and where they got the honey. He thought that when there's an opportunity to earn serious money, would some bees really stop him? After some time, he galloped on his reindeer into the territory of the bees. He touched his fingers to the deer's forehead and ordered it to hide somewhere until the hero finished his business. After working a bit, the bees already accepted the hero as one of their own and bowed before him. He found whole mountains of honey and thought that they would certainly make him rich. He understood that if he sold 10,000 liters, he would gain financial independence forever. But his joy was short-lived, as he had already encountered the queen bee who hovered over him. Faust tried to use consciousness paralysis on her, but nothing came of it, as a shield appeared in front of the bee. Information was received that it was only possible to take a little honey as a reward, and his enrichment plan failed. Meanwhile, one of the elders, who was appointed to watch over the secret portals, was thinking about how a disciple at the tempering stage managed to deceive all the bees. While the hero was furiously collecting honey, the professor told him to finish with that. Faust managed to collect only 500 liters, but that was also not bad. He wanted to buy himself a cool cauldron, the best forging equipment, and there would still be enough left for a bunch of spell tablets. Suddenly, some glow appeared above his head, and he realized that it was again that same main character. At the same time, the elder did not understand at all how now every student at the tempering stage could reach the honey. The main character has just now reached the honey to get some for himself. He reasoned approximately the same way as Faust and decided to get rich from honey. He also wanted to sell 10,000 liters at 2,000 per liter, but his plan failed because the bamboo grove suddenly closed. Sam had barely thought that the old man was too greedy when the old man said in his voice that if he spoke such words again, he would deeply regret it. After some time, the hero had already arrived at the estate of the great master of alchemy. He was looking for runes, and he needed the estate of the great forging master. There was only 1 hour left until the portal closed. The library had a collection of valuable spells. This could be called a successful raid. There was a beast summoning spell, an all-containing bag, and a waning moon spell. Suddenly the portal closed, and our hero found himself falling into the abyss. He managed to apply the body lightning technique, which is why he was now freely parrying in the air. He ran into Eustace again on his way, who suggested they celebrate today at the tavern Drunken Monk. Faust decided to use a spell for digestion. When using this spell, food will be digested in an accelerated mode. The hero admitted that they all could use some refreshment, and he would agree. The honey of deadly bees was sold at a very good price. Now there were enough medicinal ingredients to make several cauldrons of first-class pills. He was still collaborating with Famos, who supplied him with money for goods. Faust decided that now he could go into seclusion and forge until he was blue in the face. He was quite wealthy. 3 years later, the hero no longer understood why the damage of energy control and spirit enhancement were trading with each other. He would have a fit of hysteria when something didn't work out for him and objects collapsed on their own. The hero decided that since they don't get along with each other, then they need a mediator rune. A cobweb can serve as a transit rune. He applied this and tried to assemble the broken object into a single whole. Finally, the broken sword was assembled. The hero thought that it was accomplished. He decided to name it Tysiaknik. He was so happy, thinking that even though he didn't dig it up on the 1000th try, 6 attempts was still quite a lot. Over all these 3 years, Faust developed to the 8th degree of tempering. He thought that when he breaks through to the foundation establishment stage, he would surely be able to kill an enemy at the golden elixir stage. The spell-summoned beast became one of the most beloved. It was possible to summon the spirit of a water dragon, whose combat power was already at the foundation establishment stage. The hero thought that if he could find or make a vessel suitable for his spirit, it would be absolutely wonderful. Sometime later, he went to his home to finally rest. But that was not to be, because Eustace showed up with his fiancée, and he decided that there was no getting away from this sweet couple. His comrade explained that he finally had the opportunity to pay the ransom, and now they are inviting our hero to the wedding. They even set up a huge table for him with various meat dishes. Although the couple looked very cute, the hero did not feel envy. He was destined to drag on his life until he became a great sage. He beckoned them to follow him to his treasury after dinner and told them to choose some items from his collection as a gift. He explained that since he didn't have a wedding gift for them, he would let them choose one item each. The hero said that the warhead and RPG don't need to be taken. They don't work anyway. Eustace's bride chose 2 swords for herself. These were swords of insight, a pair of flying swords, white and pink. And Eustace chose for himself the very thousander that our hero had managed to restore during the forging. When Faust saw the kids off, he thought that he had spent not only a lot of valuable raw materials, but also a great deal of time on their production. And now he had to say goodbye to these items. On the 15th of next month, he must be at their wedding. It's his first venture far beyond the sect. He needed to prepare. After a month in the Heavenly Throne sect, he was already approaching the gates. The hero was dragging a whole bag of something unusual. Eustace's wedding was supposed to take place in another city, which was 6,000 kilometers away from their sect. It's good that he had a personal ship, otherwise he would never have made it to this wedding. As soon as he wanted to board his ship, he was called out by that very main character, Sam. He explained that they hadn't seen each other for 3 years, and he was planning to find our hero to chat with him. Faust had to greet him. He congratulated the hero on now being famous. Sam became interested in his ship, and our hero proudly replied that he had made it entirely by himself from spiritual wood. Sam happily explained that he was now going to his brother's wedding, and was very glad that he and the hero were still heading in the same direction. He offered him to fly on his ship as it was faster. During the flight, Sam also apologized to Faust because he completely forgot that he was only at the tempering stage. His comrade set up a huge table with treats, and our hero began to devour them. Suddenly, they both heard some noise and turned their heads, becoming alert. Sam prepared several of his flying swords. He understood that they were in danger, as they were about to be attacked. At this time, Faust saw exactly 5 swords of 5 different elements, which already resembled obsessive-compulsive disorder. Some bandits were planning to attack them at that time. If he could go back to the previous day, he would definitely find a way to scare Sam off so that he wouldn't come anywhere near him. Sam apologized for dragging our hero into such a confrontation. He explained that the robbers had come for him, so they were unlikely to chase after the hero. A crowd of enemies rushed at the ship from different directions. Sam tried to use a special technique, but didn't even scare them with it. A group of bandits ordered Sean Levon to rush after our hero and kill him. I tried to stop him in flight, but the other bandits had already caught up with him and ended his journey. Sam was given a sign from above that right now it's better to worry about himself. He gathered his courage and explained to the robbers that none of them would leave alive today. At this time, Faust turned to the heavens. He asked to be given one more chance, so that he would never leave the territory of the sect again. He summoned a spiritual dragon to his aid, which flew straight toward the robber. The bandit admitted that he definitely did not expect such a trick from a disciple at the tempering stage. Faust, meanwhile, spent 5,000 spiritual to extract spiritual energy. This should have been enough for about 15 minutes. The villain at that moment transitioned to the attack phase and sent his centipede to attack the hero. But this didn't help the villain, and without any effort, the spiritual dragon tore apart this centipede and threw it away. The next moment, the dragon grabbed the villain himself and blood started flowing from him. The villain howled and shouted that his cheap tricks would not help him escape from the hands of a warrior at the golden elixir stage. He sent him another bug as a finishing blow, which whipped our hero at the speed of light. Faust tried to summon domes that were supposed to protect him from a sudden attack. He was focused. But, unfortunately, it didn't help him, and the next moment the beetle had already sunk into his head. This was a technique for striking the psyche. Having lost consciousness, Faust was flying down like an arrow. Somewhere in the mountains, a little girl was asking her brother when they would be able to eat a lot of meat again. The brother replied to his sister that this would happen right after this immortal celestial being wakes up. Our hero was lying in bed at these children's place at that time. Just recently, they managed to observe how it fell straight from the sky. The brother explained to his sister that judging by the appearance of this celestial being, the next luxurious meal was still far away. While he was unconscious, Faust still felt everything that was happening around him. He spent half a month fighting the soul-devouring worm in the astral space. At first, the worm gnawed at his soul piece by piece, taking advantage of his weakness. And only now he managed to finally destroy it. The children were just going outside when our hero called out to them. Once an old man explained to these two children that after a person from the sky wakes up, they should immediately start drinking with their forehead to the ground until he agrees to take them as his disciples. The children did just that. They knocked their foreheads against the floor and asked the celestial being to accept them as disciples. Faust picked them up from the ground and told them not to kneel anymore. He saw right through them. The girl had 3 spiritual life roots, and the boy had 4. By the standards of this world, they would become cannon fodder at best. He asked the children why they wanted to become his students. They replied, "To eat meat every day," and this made our hero smile. The next moment, he put the children to sleep with magic. Human nature was unchangeable, and his test was supposed to reveal everything. He put the children to sleep and suggested they take a test so that he could become their mentor. And if he can't be a mentor, he promised them a life free of troubles anyway. Now the hero was going to check his condition. Although he had managed to get rid of the soul-devouring worm in the end, it had managed to cause him serious damage. He promised himself to never go beyond the boundaries of the sect again, and also to stay away from the main character. The hero decided to drink some water and thought that when he returns, he would need to make more battle puppets. At that moment, an old man entered the room and, just like the children, fell to his knees at the sight of him. The hero explained that the old man didn't need to kneel before him, as he was his savior. It was the hero who should have thanked him. Faust asked the old man what he wished for, and he replied that he and his wife would live to a ripe old age, knowing neither illness nor sorrow. The hero handed him a vial containing 10 longevity pills. The old man was supposed to take them with his wife, 1 pill every 2 years, so that it would be enough. The old man thanked him and asked what was happening with the children and why they were sleeping. The hero said that he was only testing their potential. He tested the boy first, and although he had experienced various things, his innocence in his soul remained unchanged. And this girl could achieve serious heights in cultivation. She has all the necessary qualities for it. Faust smiled and stroked the children's heads. He ordered them to sleep, because when they wake up, their lives would never be the same again. At this time in the Heavenly Throne sect, Eustace was sitting in front of the gate and blaming himself for everything, as his friend had never left his sect. His wife came to support her spouse and said that Faust is strong and he will handle everything and will definitely return. Eustace said he would wait for him here until he returns. Celestia quietly sat down with her husband and said that she would wait for him together with him. Meanwhile, in the Heavenly Throne sect's External Affairs Department, our hero was congratulated on the fact that the children fully meet the training requirements. They were already flying back home on the ship when a boy approached him and asked if it was difficult or not to become like a hero. Faust explained that if the boy would obey him well, then the path of cultivation would be easy for them. The boy, in turn, embarrassedly asked if this meant that he and his little sister could now eat meat every day. The hero laughed and said that they could now eat it 3 times a day. When the hero was already approaching the house, Estes detected his signal. After landing, Eustace tearfully turned to his companion and began to hug him, thinking that he would never see him again in his life. He peeked over his shoulder and suddenly saw two children standing in an embrace, and thought that these were our hero's children. He didn't understand how it was possible to give birth to as many as 2 children in 2 weeks, and why they were so big, but his wife called out to him. The hero exhaled and confessed that these were his newly minted students. He asked the children what their names were so that he could introduce their names to his friends. The boys sadly admitted that they don't have names. In their village, a name was given only when they found a spiritual plant, in honor of the plant. Faust turned to the boy and said that from now on he would be called Hans. He decided to give the children his last name. After that, he turned to the girl and said that now her name is Unessa. The children bowed and thanked the mentor for the granted names. The hero explained that since they were now his students, they should dress properly. He took out 2 capsules and pointed them at the children. In the blink of an eye, brand new clean clothes appeared on the children. Celestia became interested in this sphere, and the hero explained that it was a wardrobe sphere that helps make a projectile. She really wanted to buy this balloon from our hero, but he said that he would give it to her now just like that. She decided to try this ball on herself, and the first outfit she transformed into was quite vulgar. The guys were flushed and decided that she absolutely had to try some other outfit. The girl's next outfit was no less vulgar. She transformed into a half-cat, half-human. So went the other times when she was a stewardess and a teacher. Finally, the flushed hero admitted that he simply couldn't watch this right now. He explained that he doesn't understand anything about women's fashion right now, so he suggested that she experiment with this ball at home. Eustace, with a bloody nose, suggested celebrating his return and the acceptance of his first students right away. The hero did not object, and asked the children which of them wanted to eat something with meat. The satisfied children went home, and Eustace handed the red envelope to Faust. A few days later in the smithing halls, the hero was thinking about how troublesome it was to be as talented as he was. But now he had enough money to create an entire army of combat dolls. Suddenly, an elder addressed him and asked how he was not ashamed that during such a difficult period for the sect, when they needed every blacksmith, he was fulfilling commercial orders. Faust bowed and said that apparently the most honorable one was not aware that he had literally recently been on the verge of life and death. He showed him the sword that he had forged with his own hands. It was all golden in color and shining. The elder explained that right now he had to take the hero to repair their new main ship, and he had no chance to think it over. The elder told him to prepare to see something unusual, and throughout the entire flight, the hero looked around in amazement. Suddenly, a huge beast appeared in front of their carriage, more resembling a snake or dragon. Our hero was very frightened, but the old man explained that water dragons at the stage of spirit fusion guard their sect, and the sect leader caught them in the boundless sea. He explained that for just 10,000 spirit stones, the hero would be able to ride on them. Faust said that he was not yet rich enough to spend such amounts on various entertainments. Finally, they arrived at the location, and before them in the air hung a huge ship with cracks. The old man said that the payment would be direct and depends on the volume of work completed. When Faust agreed to this, the old man said that first the hero should observe the work of others to understand the essence. The hero thought that everything looked like a simple repair job. Only the coupling of damaged runes was interesting. The rest was routine physical labor. Some guy flew up to him and asked if the task was clear to him and if he had any questions. But the hero replied that he had no questions and was ready to start working. The unknown guy was surprised at how the hero understood everything just by looking at the work of others, which gave him hope. He didn't understand how the newcomer managed to work at such speed, especially considering that he was self-taught. The young man also understood that he couldn't work while relaxed. Otherwise, the hero would soon take his place. 2 months later, the ship was as good as new, completely repaired. Faust inquired if now that the ship's hull was finished, what would they be doing? The stranger replied that they wouldn't do anything, because the work that was allocated 3 months had been completed in 2 months thanks to the two of them. He handed Faust 5 stones with runes, which he had acquired by chance, and he wanted to give them to him as a gift. The hero gladly accepted these stones and thanked the stranger. He thought that the Heavenly Throne sect was much more amazing than he could have expected. They used half as an inner sector. All this time, the old man has been bringing him here. After the work is completed, he will no longer do this. Meanwhile, sharp swords were cutting through animals somewhere at the other end. It was Eustace with his wife, who had gone hunting and were now fighting monsters. Eustace suggested to his wife that when they finished this task, They should exchange the earned merit points for an embryonic pill. The girl suggested it would be better to spend them on bringing her husband closer to the foundation-laying stage. But the guy disagreed. He suggested first thinking about the child, whom they could later apprentice to their friend. He explained that another wave of beasts was approaching, and it seems there are a couple among them at the stage of laying foundations. The girl reported that there would be 3 such beasts there. They urgently needed to do something. Eustace decided to use the emergency rescue balls that his friend had given him. He tossed it into the air. Suddenly there was an explosion, and thousands of rockets descended to the ground to kill unknown beasts. At this time, the sweet couple hid behind a rock, and they were thinking that brothers should have warned them about such an effect. They thought about how great it would be if Faust was with them in the combat compartment. The girl explained that he had already been learning a lot from his brother, but his combat training was not even half as good. Eustace shouted that she had found someone to compare him with, while he was unique. They sat tiredly at the edge of the cliff, and the girl suggested that next time Eustace should ask his brother to spar with him. Suddenly their gaze was drawn to some stone located at the bottom of the cliff. Judging by the color, smell, and density, it was enriched spiritual energy and iron ore. Eustace knew that with a sufficient amount of enriched iron, one could craft armor. He threw a protective pouch to his wife and ran down to mine ore. After some time, Eustace and his wife learned that Faust had moved because he had acquired apprentices and needed a more spacious place. He showed them his latest development, the armor of God. They looked simply magnificent. Eustace immediately liked all those armor, and the hero said that from now on he could go on dangerous missions wearing them. Faust suggested his companion put on the armor so that he could assess what characteristics they possessed. They were extremely comfortable and very reliable. Faust explained that together they could increase his spiritual energy by 2 to 3 times and provide protection from physical and mental attacks. Eustace just jumped for joy, and the hero explained that the decision to bring the enriched ore to him, rather than to the market, was the right decision. The comrade admitted that at first he thought that for such valuable raw materials the hero would owe him, but now it was he who owed him. Faust said that since he had repaired the ship well, he now had the opportunity to go on an expedition, and he asked the wife and husband to look after his students. Eustace and his wife were only too happy to do him such a favor, as he had saved them many times and helped a lot. His comrade became sad because his old brother had changed so much that they were already calling for him in the expedition. Our hero thought that this was indeed a unique opportunity, but he had a bad feeling, and he hoped that the main character would not be there. After a month, he was already flying up to the main gates, which were guarded. He showed his boarding token and could already fully behold the enormous ship above him. As soon as he was about to go on board, Sam called out to him. Faust looked around and supposed that he was probably already supposed to call him an honorable brother. But Sam approached him and said what kind of respected brother could he call him, when they were old brothers and almost relatives. He approached the security guard and said that this was his brother, and asked if it would be possible to find him a better cabin. Sam decided to first give him a tour of the ship, and closer to evening supplies would be loaded on board. Then they could have dinner together. In the evening in the dining hall, Faust was already freaking out and was going to pretend to go to the bathroom just to avoid sitting with Sam. The voice ordered Sam that he must definitely become friends with Faust. This is his opportunity. Sam ordered a bunch of delicious things, and our hero was surprised. It probably cost quite a few spirit stones. Sam said that when he returned from the portal, his ailment simply disappeared, and he immediately found himself back at the foundation-laying stage. And the first thing he did was go to the family of the girl who had broken off their engagement and beat up all her brothers. The hero thought that the broken engagement was just another main character trope. Sam admitted that in this way he thought he would wash away the shame and disgrace according to rumors. But he didn't succeed. He swore that someday he would become stronger and would definitely take revenge on all of them. Sam rushed to hug Faust and said that only he understood him. From now on, he would consider him his sworn brother. The hero realized that his friend had too much to drink and was trying to get rid of him, saying that he still had things to do today. During the repair of the ship's cladding, he noticed that the most important rune was located on the inner side. At that very moment, some stranger approached the hero and put a hand on his shoulder. He didn't expect that someone at the tempering stage would have such a trained eye. The stranger asked the hero if he had any desire to become his apprentice. The hero admitted that he doesn't belong to any department yet and is still on his own. The stranger suggested that perhaps he would like to become part of the forging department, but Faust thanked him for the offer and explained that he was actually a first-level alchemist and was interested in runes merely out of idle curiosity. This immediately ceased to interest the stranger. He turned around and left. The hero understood that if he joined the forging department, he would no longer be able to enjoy the free life as he did now. Suddenly, Sam's shadow loomed over him. He said that it was a great happiness when such a serious master calls disciples to himself. Faust recoiled from him. He did not understand what kind of bad habit it was to sneak up from behind. Sam tried to tell him that the hero was making everything up, but Faust said that he wasn't making anything up. He was engaged in both alchemy and forging. While the hero was thinking about this unfortunate phenomenon, Sam in the background became very ill. After the hero left, the elder in Sam's head said that this guy was not simple and they needed to befriend him so that it would be beneficial. Faust got onto the ship to look at the flying serpents floating above the clouds. Yonetta approached him with a stranger and admitted that she too had once observed such a spectacle for the first time. She wanted to introduce Faust to her little brother, who was from the forging department and a first-level blacksmith. The hero cheered up. He was glad that he turned out to be her brother, not her boyfriend. It was Jan Schoss, and they shook hands, greeting each other. Suddenly our hero began to shake all over, and he curled up in a silly smile. After that, he ran to his cabin at the speed of light, fell on the bed and was still laughing, rolling all over the bed. He didn't understand how someone could name a young man like that and wiped away tears of laughter. He knew it was a bit impolite, and he needed to explain himself when they met. After some time, he came back on board again and looked around at everything. There were military ships with artillery. The hero really wanted to see these cannons in action as soon as possible. Next to him, Jan was getting better and suggested that they were thinking alike. Faust apologized to his brother for leaving their company so abruptly and running to the cabin as he had fallen ill. Jan seemed not to hear his apologies and suggested that perhaps fate had brought them both together on this ship. After that, the hero decided to show him the rune, a resonant optical rune of concealment. Faust understood that her brother was not entirely stupid and he had many thoughts. After that, the hero also showed him the runes, but he didn't understand why these runes were needed on the outside. Faust gave him time to digest while he was muttering something under his breath. Finally, he understood and ran up to our hero that the rune along the contour forms a structure that ensures the transit of transmitted information. The girl's brother continued to praise him, saying that he was a real genius to come up with such a rune structure. Not everyone would think of something like that. Finally, the ship hit the water. A high wave appeared before them. A message was issued that they had caught a huge monster similar to a whale. Jan explained that this was an easy but substantial catch at the very beginning of the expedition. A good sign. Faust pondered that these cannons were incredibly effective. One shot and the beast at the stage of mastering the void is dead. Jan explained that since he was seeing the cannons in action for the first time, he would soon get used to them. In reality, these were just auxiliary guns. The hero really wanted to shoot from these cannons, but for one shot, he would have to save up for a whole month. Jan said that shots from the main cannon cost the same 500,000, but they are used only for beasts not below the crossing stage. Sometime later, Faust sat on a cannon and thought about how in just a few days he had realized that blacksmiths were valued most of all here, and no effort was spared in their cultivation. Simply based on the fact that he ended up on this ship as a novice blacksmith, they threw resources at him worth at least 30,000 spirit stones. From below, Jan called out to the hero and said that he had told his mentor about his idea, and he was very interested and now wanted to talk to him. In the end, they together with Jan came to this mentor and he said that he had estimated the possible implementation of his idea. As far as Faust understood from their conversation, the grandfather wanted to establish some kind of video connection. The elder offered to become his mentor, and Jan whispered in his ear to agree quickly. In the end, the hero bowed and said that he simply didn't want to waste his time. He was following the dual path of home cultivation and couldn't devote all his energy to forging. The elder smiled. He liked the sincerity of our hero. The hero explained that between alchemy and smithing, he prefers smithing. The elder finally gave Faust a token for access to the inner courtyard and asked him to visit if he had time. After the hero left, Jan explained to the elder that our hero is still very young and not yet able to realize what he is giving up. But the old man explained that this young man was destined to achieve great heights. Sometime later, Faust was strolling along the deck and thinking that the achievement of having an engaging conversation with the grandfather had been obtained, and he did not know what awaited him next. He didn't know whom to choose in the end. Which of the two girls would be more suitable for him? Suddenly, huge waves appeared on the horizon and the ship created a protective dome over itself to avoid damage. Ahead was a large wave of various marine beasts with combat danger level B. All ships were ordered to fire from their cannons to shoot down the monsters. Finally, the clouds dispersed, and on the horizon appeared the corpses of monsters, which sprinkled the sea with their blood. Sam, who appeared out of nowhere, said that places where animals live in large numbers are usually rich in resources. He explained that in the boundless sea, one can also find their dwellings. In just a couple of minutes, the ship approached some building. The hero couldn't understand where an entire city suddenly appeared from here, and he himself explained to him that it was one of the divine relics. He grabbed the hero by the hand and decided to show him the entire city. At this time, there was a real commotion in the city. There were crowds of people. The hero called out to Yanetta, and he thought that it was fate, as this was the first person he saw upon arrival in the city. But Yan ran up to him faster. He suggested renting one blacksmith workshop for the two of them, and his sister suggested they study alchemy together if he doesn't want to forge. As soon as the hero wanted to agree to this offer, her father appeared on the horizon. He took his daughter with him, and as a result, Yan was left alone with our hero. At that time, an unfamiliar girl came in and asked if they repaired cauldrons for alchemy. Faust seemed to be impressed by her beauty, and he inquired whether she practiced alchemy. The girl confirmed this and said that if she remains without a cauldron, she will not be able to perform her direct duties. The hero used all his skills to repair her cauldron and put it back together. Finally, he succeeded, and the hero said that it would be the most profitable offer for the girl, just 50 spiritual stones. The girl grabbed the pot and happily ran out of the building, even forgetting her remaining ore here. After a month of working without leaving, Jan suggested to his brother to take a walk around the city while he works. He gladly agreed, and ran away from the workshop as fast as he could. He decided to descend in a submarine on his own expedition. In a past life, to descend underwater in an observation submarine, which would have cost him money. After half an hour, he was already 50,000 meters below sea level. Right before his eyes, a huge monster appeared, far exceeding him in size. At this time, Sam was also swimming underwater. He was asking his elder if he really needed to kill this huge creature. He explained that this swordfish was a real find, and the spine was like a sword created by nature. The elder explained that Faust was nearby. One needed to swim to him, and when you reach him, fight the swordfish with all your might so that he would help him. Sam admitted that it was some kind of bad plan. He was only at the hardening stage, but nevertheless he still obeyed the elder and swam to him. All this time he was thinking anxiously about whether his friend would save him or let him perish.